ancestors of the faith,
stand here beside us.
We remember the prophets and the priests, the ministers and teachers who have taught us the way of God.
Teachers of the faith,
Stand here beside us.
We remember our grandparents and parents, aunts and uncles, those who have gone before us in our lifetime.
Family of our faith,
Stand here beside us.
We lift up the memories of children and grandchildren, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, and parents whose lives ended too soon.
Those close in our heart,
Stand here beside us.
We lift up all the names of those saints who were a part of grace in so many ways. As we read these names, let us remember and give thanks for their lives.
Bill Adams, Sarah Adams, Jane Arthur, Dawn Black, Bill Cook, Peggy Cook,
Bobby Combs, Mary Faye Combs, Sam Davis, Ellen Delfonso, John Dyson,
Pearl Elam, Sudie Elam, Mary Ruth Godfrey, John Goodman, Gerald Grant, Nellie Grant,
Mary Jean Gross, Jean Hagy, Nora Harris, Sally Hay, Ernie Hendricks, Kathy Holland,
Pat Horn, Brenda Joins, Glenn Kirby, Ernestine Lanford, Grady Lippard, Mary Lee Lippard,
Frankie Martin, Nancy Milstead, Joe Quinn Murphy, Pam Nicholson, Joe Parlier, Joseph Parlier,
Barbara Robinson, Tommy Robinson, Wayne Rogers, Linda Sample, Steve Santorum, Debbie Starrett,
Keith Stroop, Charlotte Wardo, Don Wardo, Chad West, Jacob West, Susie Weiberg, Mary Alice Wood.
We celebrate the lives of those that we have named and lift up many more names in our hearts.
Family of God, we remember you and we honor you. Family of God,
Stand here beside us. Amen.
Good morning. We're going from the front of the Bible to the back of the Bible this morning. Book of Exodus. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here I am." Then he said, "Come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground." He said further, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. From the book of Hebrews. Therefore, we must pay greater attention to what we have heard, so that we do not drift away from it. For if the message declared through angels was valid, and every transgression or disobedience received a just penalty,
So some preachers have those screens where they can show a clip or image during a sermon. I've rarely preached in a space like that, and to be honest, I have mixed feelings about it, but I won't go into that today. But if I did have a setup like that, I'd show you, I say that because I'd show you a clip of The Lion King. Because you remember the scene where Mufasa and little Simba are lying under the stars? And Simba asks, "We'll always be together, Dad, right?" And Mufasa says, "See those stars? The great kings of the past look down on us, so whenever you feel alone, just remember that those kings will always be there to guide you, and so will I." Do y'all remember this? Yes. Simba looks up and he says, "But Dad, I can't see them." And Mufasa replies, "Keep looking, son, keep looking." See, across cultures and faith traditions, people have known this in their bones, that the boundary between life and death is not absolute, that love and presence endure beyond what our eyes can see. Disney seems to know that really well. Because in Moana, right, the ancestors appear to guide her on her journey. In Coco, have y'all seen the newer movie Coco? Right, the whole story revolves around Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, where families set out candles and food to welcome loved ones home. And the message in all of them, it interconnects, right, that this veil between worlds is thin and love crosses it. On All Saints' Day, the church proclaims that same truth. We are a part of a communion of saints, those who have gone before us, those living now, and those yet to come. Now, I know Baptists aren't usually people who recite creeds, right? I mean, I'm Methodist, but I'm in this Baptist space. But anybody knows the Apostles' Creed? Maybe. I believe in the communion of saints. Now that phrase is in there. I don't know, we might have to get David up to tell us what it means, because for a long time I thought that meant that the saints were watching us and therefore we couldn't ever replace the furniture in the foyer. But the phrase, the communion of saints, is an ancient part of our faith. A quick bit of history. All Saints' Day began in 609 AD when a pope dedicated the Pantheon in Rome to Christian martyrs. 2 centuries later, Pope Gregory moved it to November 1st, making it a feast for the whole empire. Right later, November 2nd got added to the celebration. So we had All Saints' Day and then All Souls' Day to pray for all those who had died, especially those believed to be in purgatory. Now, I know we have some Catholic roots here that can explain purgatory better than me as a Protestant. But in short, it's this belief that souls are purified by God's grace before entering heaven, right? That the prayers of the living can help those that have already died. Now, I spent a summer in grad school living with a few other grad students in a remote village in Kenya, and one of my friends was Catholic, and her younger sister had recently died by suicide a few months prior. And each week, my friend would go to the chapel and pray for her sister, and sometimes I'd join her. Do I believe in purgatory? I have no idea. But I never prayed for someone that had already died before that summer, and yet there was something true about praying with her for the soul of her sister to find the peace that she didn't find in this life. I share all that not just because of a history lesson of All Saints and All Souls Day that has Catholic roots, but because it reminds us that faith is always being shaped by culture. The way Christians think about death and the afterlife has never been static. It's always been in conversation with the world around it. If you look beyond Christianity, you find that same conversation everywhere. In indigenous worldviews, time isn't a straight line, but a circle. The past, present, and future woven together. The ancestors are not gone, but they're part of the moral and spiritual life of the community. In African and Caribbean traditions, the ancestors are often called the living dead, right? They're honored as guides and moral guardians. They're remembered at tables and spoken to in prayers, right? And I already mentioned Mexico and Central America having Dia de los Muertos, where they build altars, not to worship the dead, but to welcome them home. For this veil thins and love can cross the divide. Do you have experiences where the line between life and death feels blurred? Maybe at the bedside of someone you love, or in a dream that felt more real than waking life? Or in a quiet moment when someone who's gone seems close? Those are the places where the veil thins for us, the moment that reminds us love doesn't end just because life does. That life may change form, but it is still present. So we talked about way back when, All Saints began, and then in the late 20th century, another trend emerged. an American brand of Christianity shaped by leaders like Jerry Falwell that distanced themselves from this older rhythm of All Saints and All Souls, this weekend of All Hallows Eve. It became not a time to remember the dead, but a battleground for good and evil. And this mystery of the veil was replaced by fear of it. I was reminded of this when we were out trick-or-treating the other night. We came across a house that had a big poster taped to the door with writing on it. I can't remember the exact words, but it said something like, "We don't recognize Halloween. It's a demonic holiday. We don't celebrate death and evil. Only Jesus Christ." And it had pictures of Jesus on the door. The white-skinned kind, you know. As though our two little dinosaurs and one little mermaid were celebrating evil and death. Right? It's fascinating, isn't it? For centuries, people have not been scared, but trusted the veil is thin between life and death, and that it's sacred. And sometimes, especially in America, we've grown suspicious of that idea. We've become more rational, more individualistic, more anxious about mystery. The Enlightenment brought progress, right? Science, discovery, reason, and those are good gifts. But it also taught us to believe only in what we can see, hear, and measure. It gave us knowledge, but perhaps it stole some wonder. All Saints' Day invites us to remember that the veil has never stopped having times when it is thin. And if it feels thicker, perhaps it's because we've forgotten how to look for what our ancestors always knew was there. When we lose that sense of connection, we tend to go to extremes, right? Some of us race forward, other of us reach backwards. Both, but neither really honor this sort of communion of saints that hold us in between. Right? Some of us race forward, we're drawn to new ideas, new movements, new ways of doing church or living faith. We believe that progress will save us, that if we can just find the right language, the right justice framework, the right technology, the right plan, then maybe we will get it right. And much of that is good, and holy. God is always doing a new thing. But in our rush towards the future, we can forget that our ancestors are with us. We forget the ones who labored before us, who held the line when it was hardest, who prayed the prayers we now live inside. We lose the wisdom of the elders, the rootedness of story. Our pursuit of what's next can sometimes sever us from this deep well of memory, from the very people whose courage made our dreaming possible. Now, other of us reach backwards. We long for what we imagine were simpler times, for the hymns we knew by heart, for the world we could understand, for the church we think we've lost. And that longing can be tender, even holy, because it's born of love. But nostalgia can easily turn into idolatry. Right? It remembers the comfort but forgets the cost. It longs for the garden but not the work it takes to grow one. It romanticizes a past that never fully existed and can prevent us from seeing what God is doing now. Neither way of living, right, rushing forward or clinging backward, is what it means to honor our ancestors, or at least that's what I think. Right? We either forget them or we freeze them in perhaps the 70s. Yesterday, I was at the Council of Churches, the North Carolina Council of Churches, which is where I work. We're 90 years this year. And our celebration was yesterday, and Bishop Michael Curry was speaking. You may know the guy. He presided at the royal wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And he spoke of the wisdom of his grandmother. And he got up there and he talked to us about how his grandmother, who was a granddaughter of slaves, the daughter of sharecroppers, and that when he presided at that royal wedding, it was one of those moments for him where time wasn't just linear. It was folding in on itself, past and present. And his ancestors were standing with him. The poet Maya Angelou said something similar. Before every speech or going on stage, she would pause and whisper, "Come on, all of you, come with me." Right? She said she brought 1,000 people with her before she would go on stage. Family, teachers, artists, ancestors, everyone who made her who she was. See, when people call on their ancestors, it's not about worshiping them. It's about remembering the wisdom, the protection, the courage, and unfinished dreams of those whose lives made ours possible. Maybe y'all have different experiences from me, but I don't have a rich tradition of connecting to my ancestors in the way that some of our indigenous neighbors, friends have. And I think that there's something worth holding on to, something that they've always held on to, that the past, the present, and the future are connected, right? Now, the Bible speaks of time in two ways. There's chronos time, the ordinary linear time we measure by hours and years, and then there's kairos, deep time, sacred time, where the boundaries between past and present blur and eternity breaks in. All Saints' Day is kairos time. It's where the veil between worlds feels thin and we sense that God's story is much larger than our calendars, where we recognize that our ancestors aren't behind us, they're beside us. And I wonder, what if our gatherings, our tables are big enough for the living and the dead? And in that sense, All Saints becomes a practice of holy hospitality, right? Giving thanks for the lineage of love that holds us up. And sometimes, as you know, every morning when the headlines or something else crazy is happening, and we face the reality of snap being cut, genocide happening more and more, and that power and greed and oligarchy are threatening democracy and civil rights. And we face this reality, and we know, and we call upon our ancestors of courage who sang freedom songs in the dark, who shepherded the civil rights movements from before, who held fast to love when hatred was easier. And so who are the ancestors that you call to be with us now? May they come and be with us now and stand with us as we stand for justice. Because the veil is thin, time is deep, and love endures. Amen.